Hi everyone. Today we have Valerie and Al as our guests. They're from CERT. And I want to welcome you guys here. And before we get started, I just want to ask, what does CERT stand for?
You want to take that?
Yeah, it's a Community Emergency Response Team.
Okay. How did CERT get started?
I'm trying to think of the year, 1985, I believe. The San Francisco Police Fire Department
Oh wow.
decided that they would train a group of volunteers to be more efficient after an earthquake. And it was so successful, the program was so successful that they expanded it to all hazards, and from there it went national.
Is this a program that's in like almost every town, or how big is the scale on CERT?
There are certs
Well,
in all 50
there's
states and
cert-
some
yeah,
other
there's
countries as
all
well.
50
Wow.
states, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's in every municipality or city or a town.
That's
But, you know, at least each state is going to have a pretty decent number of teams.
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how exactly does CERT work with emergency forces like the fire department and the police department?
I'll take that one. Right now, and it's actually pretty recent, we're very involved with the fire department here in town. We are now providing accountability for them at emergencies when they have a fire or any other large-scale incident, and we also provide firefighter rehab, which is rehabilitation. So when there's a large fire, for example, the high school fire, we provided rehabilitation for those firefighters that had to go into the building and spent, a half hour, 40 minutes in the building, and then came out and needed to hydrate and rest and so on and so forth. So that's what rehabilitation is all about.
We had one group out in front and another group in back doing rehab, handing out water, a place to sit and cool off. We were also doing accountability in the back of the building, keeping track of which firefighters went into the building, make sure everyone comes back out, that sort of thing. So we were also helping out. Some of the roads around in the area were closed, and we were helping out at the barriers there to make sure folks weren't, poking their noses in where they shouldn't be.
Yeah. I remember when it was happening, part of the road was actually closed off because we could
Yes.
only get so close.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand really how the fire response was. That's amazing that you guys help these firefighters.
Yeah, it's very important. We have two vehicles that the town purchased for us. Well, actually, yeah, and one is the CERT van that has a lot of supplies in it. We can provide seats and coolers and stuff like that in the van for rehab. That was parked in the front of the building, in front of the high school. We have a lot of supplies in there for that type of thing. And in the rear of the building, there were 2 to 3 CERT folks that were doing the rehab as the firefighters came out the building in the back and assisting the ambulance folks.
It's great that you have your own vehicles for it.
Yeah,
So,
we also have a trailer that can be towed, and in that trailer is probably, 50, 60 cots that would be used for an overnight emergency shelter if
Wow.
needed, and a lot of other shelter supplies in that as well. Yeah.
If the weather is looking bad, the town lets us know to kind of be on standby in case we're needed. They will move the trailer, probably up to Sarah Noble or sometimes to the Max, the 2 shelters in town. So we have everything we need right there.
Yeah, so Sarah Noble, like if there's a disaster, they use Sarah Noble as a shelter to help people?
Overnight shelter,
Okay.
yes. That building, I believe, can accommodate about 250.
Oh wow.
The max only about 50. So it depends on how many folks are calling in to the town that we don't have power, they don't expect us to get power for a few days.
Right.
We can't get to food or whatever.
Yeah. How often do they use Sarah Noble and the other building for disasters like that? Has it happened recently?
I think the most recent were warming. Christmas Eve, I believe, was we had that freeze situation. We didn't use either of the buildings. Actually, we monitored that overnight in the town hall. But we are prepared to do that. And we did have folks come. They had no no power and weren't expecting it for days.
I don't think we've used Sarah Noble since
Not-
2011
no,
probably.
not for a while.
When those 2 storms and the power
I
outages.
remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Right.
Yeah, it was open for 10 days during that storm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we didn't have power for 2 weeks. That would have been,
Mm-hmm.
that would have been good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know during the pandemic you guys stepped up a lot and helped, Milford. How'd you guys help our town?
Go ahead.
Well, initially when it first started and there was a rush on the food bank and they started to see more and more people coming for help with the food at the food bank. We were asked to provide some directions, some parking assistance and so on, because you can well imagine that those number of vehicles and people coming presented a challenge. It actually got to the point where we had to route the cars around the building so that there would be enough room. And then eventually we ended up getting to the point where we had to provide parking spaces and organize the parking for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Had you guys ever prepared for something like this?
Not specifically for a pandemic, but we have done not traffic control, but traffic maintenance and pedestrian maintenance for different events, planned events around town. So dealing with lines of cars as they came around the building, yes, that was something we've trained for and we've done in the past.
Once the food bank thing took place, then we started with the inoculations and so on and so forth, and we found it was the same thing, controlling the number of people that were coming in and so on.
Yeah, I'm sure that couldn't have been easy.
Yeah. No, it actually got to the point where, we had to make changes and adjustments, and I think that's one of the things that we learned a lot in those instances. It's adjusting to changing conditions.
Yeah.
At one point, there was not enough spaces, so we had to reorganize the way that we were parking the cars and adjust to the changes.
Sure,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Are there any other emergency scenarios you guys deal with besides helping with firefighters in the pandemic?
Well, anything really. Emergency sheltering, overnight sheltering is one of the things that the Milford CERT was started to do. The other thing was providing the public with information on safety, emergency preparation, stuff like that. So yes, we have done overnight shelters, day shelters, warming centers, cooling, charging centers, that sort of thing. So we're trained to do all of that.
Nice.
It's quite a long list of the different things that we're trained in. And we keep learning as we go along too. We didn't know firefighter rehab, for instance, but we do now.
Yeah. Talking about training, what type of training do you have to go through to be a CERT volunteer?
A volunteer,
Yeah.
correct. Well, there's a 20-hour basic course
Okay.
that we are running right now. Right now we're doing some of it virtually, and then there's the practical part that has to be done. In the fall, we'll go back to full-time in-person classes. That's 20 hours. And it's good training for anyone, really, that wants to take the training. If you want to join the team after that, then that's great.
Basically, the basic training that we were talking about, the 20 hours, is 8 different subjects, if you will. One is disaster preparedness. How do you prepare yourself and your family in case of a disaster? What should you do? What should you do ahead of time? And so on. Then we have basic first aid. There's 2 classes in that, which include victim triage. We've got fire safety. When they take that class, they actually get to use a fire extinguisher. There's search and rescue, disaster psychology, terrorism and CERT. In other words, how to recognize people who perhaps are, experiencing terrorism, what to do to look for signs of terrorism, and what role can CERT possibly play, in a terrorist act or incident, that kind of thing. So there's 8 different ones. Even the first aid ones are hands-on. We get to do splinting and bandaging, and as I said, in triage, we feel triage is important. If the day ever comes when there's a mass casualty incident in town, we can assist the ambulance and the fire department in treating those, I don't say treating those, but helping them address the wounded by providing, what's the word?
Well, life-saving.
No, I mean scribing, do the scribing for them when they have these forms and do the scribing for them and go from victim to victim and help them in that way, yeah.
When they did a poll a while back, a few years ago actually, and it was amazing how many people don't prepare for emergencies because they assume the fire department, the police department, the town is going to take care of them. What they don't realize is the police or the fire department may not be able to get to them. That was one of the premises when they first started CERT. The whole idea was to help out before more qualified people can get there, because people were dying in the meantime because there was no organization and there was no training. So it's kind of based on a neighborhood, if you will. What can this group of neighbors do to help themselves until the fire department, the police department, and more trained staff can get there?
It's kind of like the Minutemen. That's really cool. I didn't know about all that.
Part of the preparation that is taught is having, supplies at home, having enough supplies in case you do lose power for a week or so, enough supplies that you can sustain your family for that period of time until maybe the roads open and the stores open again and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I know with the Boy Scouts, we actually kind of do something similar where we try to prepare for if there is an event that, like you're talking about, like a mass casualty event, they prepare us to try and help people as well. We did a training on tornado preparedness, like helping people if there's an event, and we have a plan for if something like that was to happen, which is to meet on the green and then kind of divide up and go and help where we can. So that's good to know that there's another group out there too doing the same thing.
Yeah. Another important thing I think Al forgot to say was how CERT is organized, which is something that you would learn in the basic 20-hour training. We do use the National Incident Management System, which is a nationwide system. Someone has to be in charge. There has to be someone to answer to at all times. You can't have too many cooks in the kitchen.
So I know you guys helped a lot out with the fire recently at the high school. What else have you guys been up to lately?
I think since the fire, we've done the road race, trunk or treat. We put up the barricades, fired the 4th of July fireworks.
Oh, wow.
And make sure people aren't going through the barricades and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's what we consider the non-emergency things that we do for the town and the agencies in town.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Why do you think volunteering is important in our town, or just in towns in general?
I think it's important because there, especially in a large town, there is so much going on. There are only a certain number of people that, can accomplish what needs to be accomplished. The sense of giving, I guess, is one of the words to use. I think each and every one of us that is on the team and has provided, assistance, really appreciate being appreciated. For instance, during the pandemic, we might be out there in 20-degree weather trying to direct the traffic and parking and so on and so forth. But when people, when they were leaving, said, thank you for what you do, it's a good feeling because you're accomplishing something and you're helping your fellow man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're mainly focused on the youth here in Milford. Is there an age requirement to join CERT?
18.
Okay. Is there a way that anyone younger can help out?
We have had a couple of folks who started their training before they turned 18, but we knew they were going to turn 18 before the classes were finished.
Oh, wow.
There are some towns that have teen CERT, and they run it in the schools, basically in case there are emergencies in the school, not necessarily out in the community. Colleges, a lot of colleges have CERT teams on campus.
Yeah, a number of years back, we actually, it's quite a few years actually, we approached the town and the Board of Education about perhaps starting a teen CERT in New Milford.
Oh, wow.
It didn't go very far at that time, and I don't know, we've had a discussion now and then about maybe trying to address that again to see if it would be a possibility, because it would be a good way, for a 16, 17-year-old who's in high school to get involved in the CERT, and then when they graduate, and they stay here in town, they can join the team.
Definitely.
But take away from there too that even if they go to college, now they've got that training, they've got that sense of volunteerism, and have knowledge in case they're needed even in college.
Yeah. I'm actually a Boy Scout, and we do a lot of volunteering around in Milford too. I'm from Troop 58, and we work with the Lions Club a lot. I'm sure you guys have worked with them too. And it's really great to see that there's another community for people to help with, and it's great to see that there's other organizations out there. Do you guys collab with any other organizations like Boy Scouts or anything like that?
Well, New Milford is so big, and there are so many organizations in town, that quite a while ago we decided to kind of limit our help, if you want to call it, to the town and town agencies,
Fair enough.
the different entities in town. So that's what we've been doing.
Yes.
Yeah,
We
New
did-
Milford is very fortunate to have a lot of other
Oh, yeah,
volunteer
that's for
agencies.
sure.
Yeah, definitely.
We did use the Boy Scouts at one time for a drill, didn't we, I think?
Yes, I think
Yeah,
so.
I think we did.
When you guys are working with emergency responders, how do you guys find out what exactly you're going to help with? Like, how do you delegate what to do?
Basically, I won't get too far into it because it's kind of complicated, but the way that we get activated, we have to get activated in order to go out and actually assist with things. The mayor and the emergency management director will decide that the CERT team is needed for XYZ. So we're kind of given, a brief description of what we're expected to do and, what we're needed for. And then we get activated, we get notified via Everbridge, which is what the police department uses for notifications. And we're told where to go, what we need to do, and so on. And then once we get there, we would talk to whoever's in charge. For instance, in the case of going to a fire scene, it would be one of the fire officers
That's awesome.
who would give us perhaps some more details on what he expects.
So how many CERT members are in New Milford?
Right now, I think we have about 30 on the roster. 15, maybe more, are very active, and we see them routinely, which is actually very good for volunteer
Yeah, 50%.
or
So it's
a good ratio.
organizations.
for any organization.
Yeah.
I know, at least in my case, a lot of my friends aren't really into volunteering as much. I was wondering, do you have a lot of the youth coming to help with, or I guess anyone who's around 18?
We have had a couple of the police cadet folks help
Oh, I heard
out.
about that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a friend who's in the police cadet.
We could obviously use younger, people, kids, I should say. I don't know how to approach it. We don't know how to approach it to try and generate that interest. Is it something that they don't see the purpose of? I'm not too sure, but we try to do that. Yeah.
That's good.
I'd like to tell everybody to try and be more aware of what the town does in the way of emergencies. As we had talked about before, shelters in town are the Sarah Noble and the Max, and look for and read emergency preparedness flyers and everything that we give out. We have everything under the sun, whether it be for the elderly, pets, children, and preparing, as you said, tornadoes or whatever emergency. What do you do to prepare for those types of emergencies?
And if you question whether there is a shelter open, call 211, not 911.
Yeah, right.
So, and they would know who's open and where.
Right.
Is there anywhere else we can find out more info on CERT online?
Well, we have a web page that you can go to, milfordcert.org. We have a Facebook page. Anyone who is looking for even FEMA type emergency preparedness or anything, just go to FEMA, and there's an awful lot of information out there. And I think you had mentioned that,
Ready.gov, yeah.
Ready.gov.
And it's all free.
And it's all free. You can take classes online. There's a lot out there,
That's all the questions I have for you guys. I want to thank you guys, and I want to thank our audience for watching. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.